This week we're continuing to work on the anchoring system.
And for you fiberglass sickos out there, I'm doing a whole lot of lamination this week, so buckle up.
My name is Matt. Follow along as I turn Duracell, the legendary ocean racing sailboat, into a comfortable cruising home. So last week I got the channel installed and glassed in that the chain is going to be running down. And this week, we'd like to keep this to a two-part series about just building this chain run and windlass box. So this week what I'd like to get done is getting the windlass box built and installed, and then get the lids on so that there's going to be two lids, one for the box itself and then one for the chain channel. And the windlass box is not for the chain itself. It's not a place where the chain is going to stack up. The chain is going to go underneath the windlass box into the bottom of the boat, into the bilge basically, just after this bulkhead. And so this box is just for the windlass and maybe some like snubber lines and little bits and bobs that you'd need regularly for anchoring. It'll be a pretty sizable box. There'll be room for extra stuff like that. So what I've been doing is cleaning up the chain channel. Yeah, the first thing is to get the box built.
To make it easy on myself, I'm going to build the bottom of the windlass box level with the water. To find the shape of the bottom of the box, I used the laser level to draw a line on the hole. Then hot glued blocks to the line which will act as cleats for the template pieces. But there was the aft inboard corner which was floating out in space, so I had to hang another block out there to make the fourth corner of the template and box. I used the templates to cut out the pieces of the box out of Kusa board, which is a high-density fiberglass reinforced foam. It is stronger and more compression resistant than the regular PET foam I use. For the box bottom, I laminated two half-inch thick pieces together to make a 1-inch thick Kusa core. I was actually piecing together scraps I had left over, and that's why I'm using 3 pieces. And I used weights to clamp it. Then I glued the 2 sides on, which are also Kusa board. To make this box super strong, I'm laminating 2 layers of 17-ounce Biox fiberglass to the inside and the outside of the box. I chose to build the whole box out of the Kusa board and then laminate it, which is a little more difficult, but it looks really nice and it uses a little less fiberglass and epoxy than making a Kusa board and fiberglass flat stock piece, cutting the pieces of the box out of that flat stock and then taping it all together. Of course, there's sanding work that has to get done as well to remove the old paint and abrade the surfaces that I'll be gluing and glassing the box to.
All right, so the box for the windlass is done. It's built out of Kusa board and fiberglass. It's a very strong part, and it's going to get glued to the underside of the deck right here, making a sealed box that's under the deck that the windlass will be bolted to. For those that don't know, a windlass is a winch. In our case, it will be an electric winch that pulls the chain up that's connected to the anchor. So there can be a lot of load on the windlass, whether if there's a whole bunch of chain out, like in a deep anchorage, or if we're stuck on the bottom a little bit. So anyway, it's a very strong part, and it will seal, basically making another part of the deck that's underneath the real deck. There will be a couple drain holes in it for when we're sailing and lots of water's coming in. There will be a lid over the top. So most water will stay out, but it's not going to be perfectly sealed. Some water will get in. All of these little details we'll get to later. But for now, what we're going to do is glue it to the underside of the deck. I'm going to use Total Boat's Thick Sew, the fast cure stuff, so that later this afternoon we can fiberglass it in. And my mom is back finally, giving us a hand. Finally. If there's enough. And actually that you could do just like 1/2 inch wide. Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Cool. This is a project I've been thinking about forever, and it's so fun to finally see it get done. All right, so we glued in this box earlier this morning, and now it's glue has cured enough. We use that fast cure epoxy that we can start taping it. So I got my thickened epoxy mixed up to make the coves in the corners. And we'll put a couple layers of tapes all the way around. I've got this all sticky up, so you can just start cleaning it. So the box is all laminated in on the underside. So the last thing to do is there's this foam edge around the deck that has to be finished off. So I'm just going to use this little tapes again and just finish off this edge, and we're getting close to done with this thing. So I've already swept this edge with thickened epoxy, and that's why it sticks really well. Just fills the grain of the foam, makes it really sticky, so that this procedure of getting the tape on is super easy. Just stick it up and wet it out, and then I won't even put peel play on it. I'll just give it like an hour or two to cure the wet epoxy, and then put another coat on to fill the weave, which is called like I think they call it a hot coat or a fill coat. This is the section of the deck that I cut out to make the track. The plan is to make a lid that goes over that track. That's just to make it flush so that nobody trips over, trips on the track as they're walking around it. Makes the deck look nice and flush, to have a lid on it, and it'll be hinged so you can just like fold it open if you need to. And so what I'm going to do is use this piece that I cut out to make the lid. Right now it's still full depth of the deck itself, so what I'm going to do is cut it down so that it's like less than half the depth that the deck is, and laminate it so that it seals up all the foam and everything. I actually also, when I cut the channel originally, I actually cut it in two pieces, which was a mistake. So I'll have to glue these two pieces together, but that's not that big a deal. And the reason that I'm cutting it down to, less than full depth of the deck is so that the chain has more room to run through the channel if you leave the lid closed. And it just doesn't, it'll be a lot easier for it to open and everything if the thing is not as deep. So the next project is to work on this and cut it down, start laminating over it. After the channel lid was cut in half, I vacuum bagged a couple layers of glass to the underside and sides to seal the foam and to stiffen it up. The Windlass box lid still had the foam exposed on the edges, so I swept it with thick epoxy to make it sticky. Then laminated the edge with a light glass cloth tape. An hour or two later, when the epoxy is partially cured, I'll brush on another coat of epoxy to fill the fiberglass weave.
Now that I had glued and glassed the box to the boat and test fit the lid, everything seemed to be working as planned. I want to keep as much water out of the box as possible, so I glued G10 Cleat to the underside of the box opening, which will be a stop for the lid as well as a kind of dam, restricting water from getting into the box.
All right, so the windlass locker is done. The basic part is done. There's a bunch of little details to go through. So to start with, how it works is the chain will get pulled up this trough and the windlass will be right here on a big block. The rest of it, of the box, is for storage for things like a snubber line. As far as the details go, this lid will not be sealed to the deck. And so water will be able to get in. I'll try to slow the water as best I can, but water will be able to get into the locker, so there will have to be drains inside this locker. Apart from the hole that the chain will fall into, there will be a box under the deck in the forward compartment where the chain will, there'll be the chain locker, basically. So there'll be drains that have to be installed into the box. The trough will be lined with like PVC or UHMW, something that will be replaceable, but that the chain can wear against, so I don't wear a hole through the fiberglass trough that I made. There will have to be some way to keep the water from rushing up the trough when we're like bashing into big waves. I could imagine that if we hit a big wave, water could just, like a fire hose, get shot up through this trough. What I'll do is use or make a like a stainless plate that will slide down into this trough that will be a chain holder, like a chain lock, as well as just a block, like a little wall that will fit inside that trough, just to keep most of the water from coming up into the chain locker, as well as holding the anchor from falling out of the boat. You'll notice that I have stainless piano hinges screwed onto this thing. I am really debating if I should continue making carbon hinges. I really like the carbon hinges that I made in the cockpit lockers and in the bathroom, the head, but they're a lot of work and take a lot of time. So I'm debating whether I should glue on carbon hinges. What do you think? But anyway, I'm really happy with how this has turned out. We have a new Patreon to thank this week. I got to meet Jeff and Sandy, and they became patrons. They're local here to the Pacific Northwest. Jeff's been cruising around the Puget Sound for a few years now. He started with a San Juan 24, moved up to a Tartan 28. Now he's on this really cool looking Compact 35, which looks like a really great Puget Sound Northwest cruiser. So it was really nice meeting you two, and thank you, of course, to everybody that's been supporting the channel. It's been a real pleasure doing this project with your support.